Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to this special military/Space Force podcast today with four of your favourites: myself, Michelle Fielding, Derek Johnson, and Brad Woxny. Obviously, myself, Brad, and Derek are former military, and Michelle is a spiritual coach, angel teacher, a divine specimen of a human, and is here today along with us to share as much detail as possible about Space Force, the makeup of it, like what it's about, like where does it come into all of this that we've been experiencing over the last several years, not just the last 3 years, but this goes back quite a while, building up to what we're seeing all around the world in terms of military makeup, military movement, and obviously alongside law and orders and executive orders. So without further ado, I think welcome Michelle to the show. If you would give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself, Michelle, so that the public can understand sort of where you're coming from on all of this and just the sheer importance of it.
So as you already said, my background is that I'm a spiritual coach, and until everything started unraveling, that's what I used to do. I used to train people on how to meet their angels, how to meditate, and how to raise their vibration in line with ascension. And then the crazy flu came, and my spiritual team, who I've been channeling for a long time, since 2012, started to say to me that this isn't what you're being told. What you're being told in the mainstream is not what's going on. And bit by bit, they started to give to me this story that I've been putting out to people for the last 2.5 years, about how what we're seeing on the ground is really just a story to keep everybody distracted, I suppose is the right word. So i.e. the elections and everything that's going on, while everybody's looking at that, what they've been showing me is that the military have been putting together behind the scenes this whole new quantum system and a new strategy. And so about 2 years ago on the Nick Veniamin show, I started to say to people, look, I think this is about something else. I don't think it's about President Trump and the politics. I think that's all just something to keep us all arguing, if you like, and looking over here. And so bit by bit, they've been explaining that the what I now know to be Space Force have been collaborating, not just with within the USA, but around the world, to create this team, this top team, who are trying to create a software and computer system which will create a peace treaty or protocol around the world, which all leaders will abide by. And it will mean that on the ground, the citizens in the future won't need as much government, or they might not even need a president or all those layers, that we have right now, because it will be decentralized to us to vote for what we want to this superior Space Force. So you and I in our local communities will decide what we want, and we'll vote for it through this superior software system. And if any country, didn't abide by the rules and the protocols of this system, they could be locked out of it. And so it's really more about controlling the leaders than the people. It's giving people freedom, but it's keeping the leaders in sort of in a position where if they don't abide by these rules, then they could lose their communications network, or their banking might go down, or something could happen which will disrupt their country. So this is the way that it's been explained to me. So most recently, the last week, I kept getting drawn to the structure of Space Force. I think you've got a picture of it, AJ, called the Space Operations Command. Because for a long time, even before the freaky flu, I kept seeing a symbol that was drawn by my spiritual guides in my channeling. And when I saw the Delta Force on the Space Operations Command, it looked the same as this logo that I've been having channeled to me for a long, long time. So I wanted to find out who these Delta operations were. So I've just put out 2 videos this week on my locals.com platform, explaining that the Delta arm is basically where they're doing all of these software and strategic operations, and they're very highly classified. And what they're doing basically is they're pulling in people that can innovate. So this is different to, how, sorry, there's a funny noise on the line. Can anybody hear that, or is it okay?
No, it's okay.
Okay, I was getting a funny noise, sorry. So basically what they're saying to me is that in the past, as Derek has been explaining to us all, there's been this manual, the War of Law manual, that the military have followed, like from a procedure point of view. And what they're saying to me is that this Delta arm are creating a new manual called the Law of Peace, if you like. And it's a manual that will be worldwide, followed worldwide, and it will be all about how you maintain peace in each country, each continent, each arm of this military space force, which is not just in the US, but all around the world. And so what they've also explained to me is, even though it's called Space Force in the USA, you do have the same, you have the equivalent, you have counterparts in other parts of the world. And they've explained to me that for military operations, it's been divided into north, south, east, west, the world has. And that overseeing this north, east, south, west regions are 6 commanders in chief. And it's these 6 commanders in chief that oversee these arms, these space operation commands, and in each location. And what I've been seeing in the last sort of few months really, is a lot more advertising of the Guardians. The Guardians are the people that are slightly below this infrastructure that you can see on the screen. They're the new people that are being brought in to be trained on different aspects of military intelligence and programming. They don't have access to the highest strategic plan. In fact, even the commanders in chief don't have all the plan. They only have the part that they need to know. And so I've been seeing a lot of information coming through recently on recruitment for the Guardians, which are all under this Delta Force arm. And I've been seeing a lot of countries signing in to this worldwide military peace plan. Yeah. So in the last few weeks, I've seen Japan, the UK, and Portugal announce that they're signing into this sort of collaboration with Space Force. So whereas 2 years ago, I couldn't see any evidence of that, I was saying all these things to people, but I couldn't find evidence. It now seems that process is well underway. And I think if you do some sort of research, you can find the countries maybe that have been signing in now are being announced. So I thought what was interesting, like in terms of like Derek's information, is the Law of War manual is procedural. It has a line of command. It's absolute. But what they're telling me about this Delta command is that the Law of Peace manual is kind of still being written. It's still being agreed upon. It's still being ratified. And it's encouraging its military personnel to be more innovative rather than following chains of command. So they're trying to change the culture away from being defensive to more offensive, which is where you think in advance what might happen in the cyberspace arena. So the Law of Peace manual is really concerned with the cyberspace arena, which is this part, the Space Operations Command. And Derek's Law of War manual is more concerned, I think, with what goes on the ground, the operations on the ground. So this is something that's just come through for me this week. I don't know how everybody feels about that, or if they have any feedback.
Well, I think we'd be good to start with just Brad a second, actually, on the everything you're seeing here, symbolism wise. Brad saw like several years ago, didn't you? We had this conversation. Obviously, like I won't steal your thunder, buddies. Like the floor is yours. Like explain like what you've seen and how your integration with this has kind of evolved over the last couple of years.
It's quite interesting. And for the audience who is watching, you know, you're hearing from Michelle Fielding. These are divine feminine who are tapped in to the quantum realm, the God mind, and receiving messages as channels like Edgar Casey, Dolores Cannon, Esther, other people, Janine with the cards, Kristen with the tarot cards, right? And what we're looking up here, and my experience AJ was alluding to, in May of 2018, I was about to go and have a Mayan reading, and I'd already been 3 years into being a Reiki master, and I'm also doing multiple life between lives and also quantum healing hypnotherapy to understand a little bit more about my background and what I can do. Because my soul's purpose is to uplift the consciousness of humanity through song and story. And up until the flu started, the false flu, that was on Instagram, that was on all my profiles. You know, my soul's purpose is to help uplift the consciousness of humanity through song and story, right? I was going down the screenwriting route. And then this image that we see before us, right on the very top two, you see the circle, and then you see that kind of delta image. I had the dream the night before I did that Mayan reading. I was in Costa Rica, and to meet the spiritual shaman, divine feminine as well. And I had this vivid dream of me flying a plasma jet that looked exactly like this, which is also the same image on the Jovian archive image. If anybody knows that, if you don't, Google it, look it up. And I've never seen that image in this lifetime incarnation I've had yet in conscious memory. And it was so vivid, and I was flying through space and I was flying through worlds. And when I woke up, I felt one of the very rare instances of dreams I've ever had in my life, where I didn't feel that I had woken up out of a dream, that I was actually living it. And then I stepped back into the bed where I woke up and then went off for this Mayan reading. Now, here's the other thing. The shaman who gave me the Mayan reading, she did something called Jovian Archive. That's how I learned about it. So she started going through my charts after doing the Mayan reading, and then she showed me the chart, and it was the same image, what we see before us on the logo, to the very, on my screen, top left, that very, very, I don't know the exact image that we call it, but Delta Wing says Space Operations Command in it. So again, no coincidences, right? But I didn't fully get it. I just knew, and without me having conveyed any of this to that shaman woman who did the Mayan reading and then the Jovian Archive, relationship of myself and my past and my soul and my partners, and forward looking, kind of like a Project Looking Glass, if you will. Isn't it amazing how these indigenous nations can help tap into this realm, right? Then I got to understand a little bit more about my current self and the future self, and what I was to do and share in the triumphs and challenges that would come to me personally, and then also on the world. And so now I think the title that we have this show is World Peace, because everybody is seeing a lot about war, directed energy weapons, the children and sound of freedom, which has to stay, by the way, at the front of our consciousness for sure. But I think this is wonderful for people to feel world peace, that the plan for world peace, as Michelle has just put out on Locals, is instrumental and being worked on right now. But we all have a part to play. So that's kind of my read, my interpretation of it, and I'll leave it there and go over to back to you.
Yeah, fantastic, bro. And yeah, it's amazing to have and for you to share just those like experiences of people. And I'm sure there's a lot that people will take from that and resonate with from their own experiences, not necessarily like related to Space Force, etc. But you know, there's so many other things in the world that people are actually experiencing right now that they can't put their head into. And that's why these shows are good, whether it's about Space Force or whether it's about entities or whatever it is. Like people are having like a big shift at the moment, and this is going to have a big part to play in it, like worldwide, you know, no matter how you feel. So it's great to have that kind of correlation. Derek, obviously you've been the man in the moment with all the law orders manuals, breaking everything down like piece by piece, the executive orders, Trump's involvement, but obviously Space Force, the military itself, because it's not all about one man. And we often have to emphasize that at the end of the day, that there's always somebody in power playing that character, whether you're good or bad. But what you do is you break down the military aspect of it very, very well, better than anybody in the world. And there's no wonder you get challenged a lot, and you get challenged because people don't actually understand it. And not everyone's expected to, but it's what we do kind of expect is for people to actually try and understand something, actually spend some time looking at the very information that's presented in front of them. And that's why you break it down so very well consistently on a daily basis. From the information you have and know in terms of the law and orders and where that fits in with Space Force and the peace side of it, what you're looking at now, is right to kind of elaborate on that and that sort of deep connection, because this is something you've been on for quite some time.
Well, it's cool that we have three veterans right here. And you know, what I try to do first with people is I'm like, look, you're living through history. So, you know, anytime our ancestors lived through history, did they really know they were going through it? Did they know what it would look like 200 years from now? And then looking back on it, we've had periods in world history of great awakenings, plagues and things of that nature. I'm sure the people knew they were going through it, but did they know what it would look like 200 years in the way that a certain group of people way out here would look back on it, right? When we look back on things, it's kind of like that old song, you should have seen it in color. You know, when I heard my dad even tell stories of the 40s and 50s, I saw it in black and white, but he saw it in color. So it's kind of the same thing, is that what we're living through right now is beyond extraordinary in a different way. And it's trying to get people to, you know, automatically out the gate think positive. Because if you're living and breathing and God gives you till, like, if you're 40 years old like me and God gives me to 90 to live, then I'm going to live through this, right? So it's a matter of finding the positivity and knowing that you're living through it no matter what. So why don't you find the positivity in what's actually going on? And for the United States, well, like President Trump says, we're a nation of laws and orders. Now, you have to go back to 1803 and look at, we had a founding father having to go into the Supreme Court 14 years after the Constitution and have to define what a law looked like. That's pretty bad considering, I mean, we're talking about under 2 decades, right? That you have a founding father having to go into the Supreme Court and say, well, any statute that looks like a law that doesn't support the Constitution is null and void, meaning tear it up. Right. So when you do all these things and you work your way forward to where we are, I mean, I always joke around because I am a Christian. I do believe in God. I'm like, I mean, God forbid a group of people around the world want to change the world to make a better world and to go into this federal corporation, because it's not just the U.S. I mean, once again, we know they're all connected. The Vatican, London, and DC. So it's like you have this connection, right? And God forbid we have people who are waking up going, hey, we're going to change this. We're tired of this. We're tired of starting stupid wars with people who aren't really our enemies, right? And we're going to flip this thing around. So that makes sense that, you know, when you say going to the offensive, I want to make sure people out there do know that, you know, our military was actually established to prevent wars, not start them. And that's why you had Eisenhower, when he left office. See, if people don't realize Eisenhower, some people don't realize this. There's still some Americans who have no clue that Eisenhower was a general before he was a president, right? So here's a 4-star general, right? And then a former president telling on January 17, 1961, he didn't like the direction our nation was going with our military because of a military industrial complex. So all the law war manual is correct. It's a ground manual because all of our wars have been on the ground. All right. Well, when President Trump had his speech on December the 15th, 2022, he said we need a digital Bill of Rights because technology is not going away. All of our wars now are going to more technology, and it's a race to get to space, as the saying is. And that's not just the U.S. I mean, we've had multiple countries a race to get to space, satellites, imaging, all kinds of drones now. Our technology is beyond compare, and we're still not shown what we're capable of. We know about it. So, when you break it down, the Executive Order 13885 was the Quantum Initiative that became the Quantum Initiative Act. And then it became quantum.gov, which is live and active. You can go to quantum.gov right now and look at all the different entities that are involved in that. And then the most key thing, which is really awesome to pair with what Michelle has, is the fact that December the 20th, 2019 was the day the Space Force was established as the 6th branch of military. All right, that same day, December the 20th, 2019, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law, that version of military law was established in 1950. That was the first time on December the 20th, 2019, since 1950, that it had an overhaul, that a lot of the language and terminology inside of it was changed and reissued. December the 20th, 2019. The Court Martial Handbook, which would be for judge advocate generals and things of that nature, it was overhauled as well with multiple new laws and orders on paper. And then also that same day, the War Powers Resolution Act. The War Powers Resolution Act of 1973 is the very act where Congress and the president can declare war, all right, in a domestic setting, all right, not foreign, but in a domestic setting. When you go to 50 U.S. Code, chapter 1541, was chapter 33, section 1541, letter C shows how when a president declares executive orders, a national emergency through executive order, he can declare war. All right, through a national emergency. All right, so Donald Trump declared 12 national emergencies. Now, some of those national emergencies, a president could technically, a new president in a normal situation could extend those, sure. But when he federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty on the military side of things, I love how y'all pronounce military, by the way. I wish I could say it like Michelle and AJ. I love it, but military. I wish I could say it like that, but when he federalized 1 million reserve components, that meant all reserves. That meant individual ready reserves, the ready reserves, the National Guard. That was all entities. All right. Now that didn't mean that it was going to be my unit or anything like that. He also invoked retirees, depending on their retirement status. He invoked officers of the Coast Guard, retirees of the Coast Guard. I mean, all of your Title 14 and Title 10 were invoked. All right. So it depends on who you are out there if you're going to get that call or not. I haven't, but doesn't matter. They may not need my unit. There's so many units in the military that so many people would never dream that. So when you look at that order, all right, here's how you pair it in with that. That order just on July 13th, so we're looking at a month ago now. It's hard to believe that, but July 13th, Biden put an executive order out, and it's an extension order because you cannot extend an executive order with a national emergency to no more than 2 consecutive 12-month periods. So a new order had to be put out. However, where the original order is in the War Powers Resolution Act. But Biden on July 13th put out an order and it says, I delegate the Secretary of Defense. Okay, well, when he's speaking that kind of language, that should tell any military personnel to go look at the War Powers Resolution Act, because that's where the actual order would be. So when you look at the last amended section of the War Powers Resolution Act, that's section 1550. Then if you type in 50 U.S. Code, chapter 33, 1550 in Google, it's going to pull up the page specifically on house.gov for that. It's going to have section 1550 at the top, and at the very bottom, it says executive documents. Well, there's an executive document with a memo that says for the fiscal year 2020, but a memo of 2021. If you're any kind of accountant out there, that makes no sense whatsoever. None. The fiscal year 2020 But here's a memorandum from 2021 that proves continuity of government already. Because why is a memo of 2021 being accounted for in 2020? Well, that memo specifically says I delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550, Joseph R. Biden Jr. We'll go scroll up to Section 1550. What's the date in there? It says on December 20th, 2019. Who was the president December the 20th, 2019? What happened on December the 20th, 2019? The Space Force was established. The Uniform Code of Military Justice was overhauled. The Courts Martial Handbook was overhauled. And Donald John Trump put in the last amended section. It says 180 days after this, and then 180 days thereafter. And ironically, today is August, 15th? He just put up a truth a while ago using the word thereafter with him as a president. He said, what I have done as president and thereafter, meaning present tense. All right, but thereafter, 180 days added to December the 20th, 2019 would be June 17th, 2020. In March 2020, in between that first 180 days is when he federalized 1 million reserve components. So all these orders that Biden has put out, when it says the July 13th order was him sending 3,000 reserve components to Europe, that's 3,000 of that 1 million from the original order, right? So that shows your continuity of government. As Michelle was saying, we were talking about, I've been saying this, Michelle's been saying it, we've all been saying it really, but everything's a distraction on the ground. It's a continuity of government, though, by law and order. So if people out there want to know by the laws and the orders, by what actually governs our land, then you got to look at the War Powers Resolution Act and where the original order is. So tying that back in to what Michelle's talking about too, with the Space Force, August and December 2022. So this August has been a year ago now. And then December coming up a year, the Army transfers all their communications to the Space Force, all communications, the Army and the Navy. All right. And then also the Army transferred all their ground warning missile systems. All right, look in Space Force, Space Delta 4 right here, missile warning. See that? So there's the Army transferred all of that. It's going to be accounted for in the fiscal year 2024. So it just happened early this year where the Army transfers all of their ground warning system, missile warning systems to the Space Force. And then back in August last year in December, this past December, they transferred, the Army and the Navy transferred all communications to the Space Force. So it ties in, it's specifically what Michelle's talking about with the Space Force being the central command and everything running under that. And Donald Trump, what does he wear all the time? He wore it both times I was at the golf course with him. He had his shirt on with his Space Force logo here and right here. And when you walk into Trump International, right when you walk in the door, right to the right is the massive Space Force logo with the Delta there. So it's really cool that all this, it does tie in and it makes sense for what he talks about with a digital Bill of Rights, because he says it, technology is not going away. That's going to be our new wars in the future, is more of this, not so much boots on the ground and fighting, careless wars that, that AJ and Brad and the Bishop, I call him the Bishop Major, the Major Bishop O'Connor and Lieutenant Colonel Bosey and Colonel Sellers talks about. It's like, hey, we're moving away from that. We're going to a whole new dimension. And it is real. I mean, you can't make it any more real than that. And that's current. That July 13th executive order is literally that current, and it ties you back to the December 20th, 2019, and all these things that were put into place that's going to move us forward in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Derek. And a fantastic description there of it just really highlights how vast your knowledge is on this, and people can't pick faults with what you do, because you just have to listen to the way you just expressed all that in that extreme detail. And again, just credit to your brother, the way you break it all down and that. And again, this is what this is all about. There's people like yourself out there that were born for this stuff. Like there's no one else out there doing this. That you are literally living your role now, and I really encourage people to take note of what Derek's sharing daily on all of this stuff, because it's such a pinnacle part of everything about what's going to happen, in every nation over the next coming months and years, and where we're actually going as humanity. And we doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on, everyone's lived through the same BS over the last 3 years, and totalitarianism in different countries, and just lies and deceits from governments. I think pretty much everybody now can see that the governments in any of these countries are not our friends, and like we're seeing the collapse of them all. But all this stuff needs to collapse for all the good to come in. We've already experienced duality long enough, the dark and the light, and I think everything's moving towards the light in a big way, because, and it's not just in a quantum way, it's because I think it's highlighting the fact that we are quantum in our capabilities as human beings, and they're evolving faster and faster and faster. Like Brad talks about it all the time on his shows, and that just what us humans are becoming more capable of in our quantum capabilities. And Michelle talks about it all the time. And on that, Michelle, given this information that you've presented and that you're channeling and stuff like that, is there a lot of talk around the introduction of Space Force and humanity as a whole moving in line with the introduction of Space Force, what it's all about, the sheer vastness of the quantum realm that it's part of, because it's not just the Space Force, is it? We're talking about the quantum financial systems, the quantum voting systems, like the education systems, the healthcare systems, all the faulty systems that we have now in a 3D sense that are all collapsing right in front of our eyes. Is this going to be very much part of this overall, quantum life that we're going to live moving forward?
So the way they explain it to me in terms of the military is not that the military per se will be looking after the financial system. What they're going to be looking after is more the software that runs, if you like, the internet, that runs all of the financial system, that runs all of the banking, that runs all of the education, that runs our decentralized voting. So it's not that the military are in control of any of those schools of thought, if you like. It's more that they're putting together the structure to keep everything below it safe, so that nothing can come in and hack it or shut it down. And so then you and I can then vote in the future using their software system and get the policy, not the people, but the policy that we actually want. And so the roles of presidents and people like that, as I was saying before, won't be necessary, because this superior software will be able to act in a lot of ways as the security blanket for all the things that at the moment are just very corrupt. So as you were saying, a lot of the systems are being taken out and taken down. And so one of the reasons that we have this dancing around on the ground with, is Trump going to be president? And then there's, the shouting of, was it an election fraud? And we're dancing back and forth. Partly that is because the software in the background is maybe just not ready enough yet to hand over, because they're still testing it. They're in there with hackers of their own, trying to get into the system to see where there might be any vulnerabilities. And until they're absolutely kind of sure, as much as they can be, that they can hand that system over, then we are going to see these dancing around scenarios on the ground in terms of politics and distractions. So whenever I ask, is Donald Trump going to be president, they keep explaining to me that it was never really intended that his role was as president. He was more a sting operation to bring out the bad players. And it's not intended that he will win in 24 in that respect, because that's not really his role. His role is the commander-in-chief supreme. So out of those 6 commanders-in-chief, if you had to give one authority over all of the others, it would be him. But having said that, even though he is the one with the broadest scope in terms of understanding the world peace plan, the world military peace plan, there are still aspects of it, they tell me, where he will not be told it for his own safety. So even though he knows the broadest picture of all of everybody, along with a very small team of people which are above Space Force. So above Space Force hierarchy, there's another layer, which some people want to call, I assume, the 17th letter of the alphabet. And that is such a small group of people. And Donald Trump is the person inside of that group. He's the commander-in-chief with inside that group. So in terms of him running for president, that's not really what he's supposed to do. He's not really supposed to become president. He's more the voice piece for all the changes that we need to make in order to get to this new structure. And when I'm channeling this Space Force structure, they are working like, if you could just sort of see somebody on a wheel, just constantly cycle. They are at this day and night, literally. And it makes sense to me what Derek was saying when they've pulled in every military resource that they need, that they can find, even to the extent now that they are outsourcing some of this to private companies that have been highly vetted, that are very experienced in cybersecurity, because this is such a huge project that needs to be put into place. And so everything that's going on the ground, it looks like it's going very slow. And that's deliberate so that the people in the background, the Space Force, the cybersecurity around the world, the worldwide military peace plan can be put into place. And once they're absolutely at a place where they feel secure with what they've got, that's when you'll start seeing on the ground the changes happening, and it'll be more obvious. But at the moment, that if you think about it, President Trump is like a placeholder. All this talk of elections and fraud and Biden, and it's all just placeholders while they're getting the system into place. And so what was interesting was when Derek was talking and he said about quantum.gov, I think they were saying to me, that is exactly what they were trying to explain to me when they said the War of Peace manual, and it's under that quantum.gov. And I think that's where it ties together. So thank you for saying that, Derek, because I'm going to go and channel that after and see what they say. I think that's what it is.
I'd like to add too, real quick, what you're saying though, too. I've been trying to explain to people over and over and over in a good way, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because repetition sometimes helps people. But technically, because, and we got 3 veterans right here. A while ago, I should have tied in as well the Military Justice Act. The Military Justice Act in the United States history is the very first documentation or legislation, however you want to call it, because that's exactly what it is. It's bipartisan legislation as well. But it's the first time in U.S. history that we have anything that backs and supports our foundation of our founders who established military first. And the Military Justice Act is actually... it was written, so it was clarified and written way back here in 2016. That's why it's called the Military Justice Act of 2016. It wasn't passed until the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act. So it was written before continuity government and passed during continuity government, which is very key. The other thing that's key about it is that was the Supreme Court clarifying it. That was the Supreme Court before Donald Trump's nominations. So that was still the old Supreme Court as you knew it, with Ginsburg and the other. So when you really think about that, I mean, a lot of liberals love Ginsburg, right? A lot, you know, if we're going to use party affiliations here, unfortunately, but if you do that for the ones out there that's still in this kind of normal setting, trying to figure this out and trying to explore what we're talking about, because we're in a whole new realm of technology, we're in a whole new realm of Earth and where we're going. I mean, it was the Supreme Court before Trump's nomination. So it wasn't, oh, Trump's people did this for him, you know, like that. No, this was before. And they clarified three major important things. One, that military courts and laws are separate from civil courts and laws. They clarified that president and commander in chief are two separate roles, two separate titles, two separate duties, two separate obligations, two separate laws. And then they clarified that the commander in chief is separate from the federal government. So that's separating Article 2 of the Constitution from Article 3 of the Constitution. All right. So very key and powerful there to note that. So technically speaking, from a military term, Donald Trump has never been president. He was a visual president by law and order for the low level, the normal level, right, the average level. But by military spectrum, he's never been president. He's always been commander in chief. He was placed in this place. He was a placement, like you said a while ago, and he's never been a president by that. So technically, let's say he was going to run, he'd have 8 years of eligibility in the midst of this 8-year, what's going to be an 8-year war right now coming up in the next year. But yeah, he's a placement. All right. And by military side of things, and by military laws, and by military orders, and by military codes, and by military regulations, by military customs, like it's all separate. And the Supreme Court clarified that. It was bipartisan. Congress passed. And when people ask me, did Congress know? Did the judges know? Did the lawyers know? I'm like, yes, they know, because that's what a continuity government is. All of those entities are under a continuity government, all three branches. So yeah, they know what's going on. They're under NDAs. It's also national security bridges for them to go out there and say. And then also tying into that, the Executive Order 13848. I know I sound like a broken record, but if people would slow down, and I'll slow down and I'll try to talk slow through it again. But that one order proves everything in a different way. What you just said a while ago, this was never about the elections from the standpoint of elections, right? It was never about, oh, who's going to win this primary and who's going to win this presidential. There's nothing about that. Everything that President Trump says is about fair and reciprocal trade, fair and reciprocal voting, fair and reciprocal everything around the world, around the planet. When he said America first, he wasn't saying, oh, America, America. He was saying, no, every country right now needs to operate on their own in a different way, right, for their essential functions, because there's an operation going on the bigger function, right? So that 13848 was signed 2 months before any election under his presidency. And it specifically says, although there has been no foreign power alter the outcome or vote tabulation in any United States election. All right, well, on election day, 4-star General Nakasone tweeted, and he's still very heavily involved in this to this day, but 4-star General tweeted, as tens of millions head to the polls today, we have our National Security Agency and the Cyber Command with our joint partners all over the world watching. All right, he's giving you this, he's already shown you the quantum and the different. He's also showing you the military occupancy, because when the National Guard took over these voter precincts, guess what we have? We have systems that can't be hacked. We have analog systems. We don't have the digital where they can go in there and they're showing you all these multiple layers all at once to what we're talking about here. That's going to be the future, right? So that one order outlines so much stuff. And on the everyday life, it also cancels out the everyday, the average life too, because although no foreign power has altered the outcome, well, that's all our votes. If you're American, that cancels all your votes right there. It says there's nothing, it's not happening on our end. It's happening on all these evil global elitists that have been controlling these all over the world. Because it didn't just happen here. Brazil had the same thing happen. Other countries have had the same thing happen. This is not just an American thing. All right. And then also going in one step further, or vote tabulation. That little conjunction there in vote tabulation are objections. Well, what happened on January the 6th? 2 objections happened in the Arizona count. And by 3 United States Code Chapter 15, they were supposed to stop voting when those 2 objections happened and go into a special chamber. If it took 2 months, 3 months, 4 months to sort that out, they were not supposed to keep counting past that. So there's a way to operate all this like there's 2 like things going on, right? There's the normal and the average everyday Americans, Like, you got to see these distractions, you got to see these laws and orders put into place. But then over here, if you want to know what's going on and see the higher realm of what we're operating with, because this is going to be your future, whoever's listening, this is going to be your future. So you can either stay in this realm, all right, and that's okay if you got to learn this first. If you don't know what we know and you got to stay here and learn that, but you need to learn this as fast as you can where you can hop up here, because this is going to be your future, because this is what all these actually mean. Those orders were not put into place for staying right here. Those orders were put in place to learn this right here and then move right here, which is all of what you're looking at on the screen.
Amazing.
The other thing, Derek, is that what people have got, this is a reverse psychology program going on around the whole world. So when people are arguing about, do I want a smart city or not? Do I want to be black or white? Do I want to be transgender or I don't want transgender? All of this is deliberate so that people get so distracted with it all that in the end they just come back to center and they learn to vote for what they want, not what the media is telling them, not what their neighbour's saying, not what is the loudest voice on the radio. This is why it's all so crazy out there with misinformation and everything going all over the place, going around in circles. Because when this new quantum system comes in and you're able to vote for it on your own in your home, what you want, you're going to have to be capable of doing that. And a lot of people at this present time are not capable of making decisions and not capable of thinking for themselves because they've always been used to the government telling them how to do it, and the TV telling them how to do it. And I think another reason people don't listen, Derek, is because they are fearful of what we're saying, because they hear control. They hear top-down control from this cyber system. And what they don't understand is it's a system for freedom, not control. Because what it does is it decentralizes decision to us. All the Space Force is doing is running the engine. We're the ones driving the car. We're in control of the car. They're just running the engine. We decide which direction we want to go in. This is what I try to put out on my channel constantly. It's not a system for control. The only people that are going to be controlled, if that's even the right word, are the countries that are signed into it at the top levels, because they all have to abide by the peace treaties, not just to other countries, but to their citizens. And if they don't allow peace and freedom of speech and sovereignty to their citizens, they'll be locked out of this worldwide peace plan. And it's an amazing... When I've actually got the concept clear in my mind, whoever came up with this, I think, is absolutely genius.
Absolutely.
Just on that, how vast and amazing this is. Just want to go over to Brad, because obviously Brad, being Canadian and a Canadian veteran, and from a country which has seen the most totalitarianism, the most dystopian acts towards their fellow nations. It's been discussed, and I've reported on it a lot from here in the UK because I've seen it firsthand, and it's been absolutely awful. One of the worst places on the planet. How welcomed do you think this whole project's going to be to the nation of Canada?
Well, first of all, it's a really exciting time to be alive. What you're literally looking at, as you and I had our last show, I think it was last week, AJ, we called it Returning to Sovereignty in God. Yeah. Right. It's also the title of the Venus Twins course as well, which was channeled once again, divine women, divine feminine channeling from source, from the great omnipresence of divinity. Right. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Michelle brought it up in her channeling, that the military are responsible for the security. The oaths that all three of us took, 3 different countries, America, Britain, Canada, was military is here to protect the citizens. So we're basically the front line, even though you may not be seen to be on the front line. And so what you just now have is an infrastructure, a galactic infrastructure which is here for mankind on earth, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, as we return to sovereignty in God, which includes coming back to our 64 strands of DNA, activating those, just as was written in the Bible, we are created in his image. And people might be going, you're a Reiki master. You're not part of a Roman Catholic Church. Why are you saying that? Again, and especially to the youth, you're amazing. You know, this isn't your first trip around the sun. The youth are so much more in touch with their souls, with their higher selves, with their spirit guides, with the benevolent galactics, which are angels, right? We just had that show, the Spiritual Warrior show, about angels are benevolent galactics, right? Bridging that realm of complete love and righteous justice here for us. And when you look at God and righteous justice, the great omnipresence divinity, you're here to do what's right versus what's wrong. And the series of checks and balances that the Americans had in their Constitution, which was then the Republic stolen from them in the Act of 1871, and then registered on the Securities and Exchange Commission 10 years after the Crown Corporation of Canada was registered by Queen Victoria on the Securities and Exchange Commission in Pennsylvania Avenue. The same thing as Australia and Bosi and Guru and all those divine souls and the Venus twins being traded on a stock market like a piece of cattle because the Australian corporation is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So going away from that, returning to sovereignty, what does sovereignty mean? As Michelle put it, choose your gender or not, choose your color or not, choose this or not. You have to go back within. The answer is within the heart, right? The heart is the seat of the soul. We've seen with heart math, it's well proven, and share this once again if people have never heard of it, that your heart coherence, the resonant vibration from your heart, is over 100,000 times more powerful than the waves that come from your brain. That's why the heart ID, which is likely going to be the eventual biometric ID, because you can track any sentient life anywhere in the galaxy and the metaverse with quantum entanglement from the heart center. How amazing is that, right? How amazing is it that this lotus flower represents the womb of life, the cradle of a civilization, and the heart, the seat of your soul. So, I mean, we are a perfect instrument created in the perfect image of our creator for a reason. And let's go back to that plan and just recap Michelle, her amazing channelings. If people didn't hear this the first time, here it is. You have Earth divided up into 4 quadrants, northeast, south, and west, run by 6 commanders in chief. Commanders in chief. You didn't hear the word president in that channeling. You didn't hear prime minister in that channeling. And you also heard that it will go to a level where they're going to be like an ambassador. Where have we seen this before? We've seen this in Star Wars. We've seen this in Star Trek, in the elements which have been brought forward to us. We're living right now in the climax where it's the war of the machines, Matrix, and Terminator. We are living this right now, not just in Canada, which has got to be the worst out of the quote unquote first worlds, as you put it, AJ, because I remember being here and we see what they were doing in Australia and going, that's really bad, until they started locking us down. And in Vancouver, if I had to go out and work, an RCMP is going to pull me over and ask me, I'm 5 kilometers out of my zone of Vancouver where I live, and I have to show them I'm an essential worker on a TV and a film set in directing or acting or something. What, that's essential? That deserves it? What about the people that can't shop? And of course, they locked us down. I couldn't shop either.
Yeah.
But this, the murder, the euthanization, the challenge of kids, the fact that the quantum computers have it all, that also means all those people watching this who willingly overlooked known evil, woke. That includes doctors, administrators, you name it, on everything of crimes against humanity, are going to be held accountable. And that's really exciting because we are moving into that phase very quickly, as has just been laid out here in the Law of War Manual, as has been laid out by the 12 national emergencies that then President and wartime Commander-in-Chief Trump put out, as has been laid out in all of the continuity of government plans, as has been signed on for treaties by multinational corporations and sovereign nations in the last year, plus that we're going to a point where we will have absolute peace, love, and abundance on earth. That's exciting, especially for the youth. And two more things come up. We're recording this in the middle of the first ever, most historic exercise of the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps operations commands that are on every corner of the planet across 22 time zones. Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi retired, right, of SAS. And I have to put it up there again because we have new people who have joined the channels. He's already stated that, yes, they're actively arresting people. We have had here in Canada cities who a storm shows up, power goes out, alarms and sirens go off, first responders, and then guess what? The power comes back on, all the sirens go off, and things are quiet for a little while. It seems that there's a wrap-up in place, potentially arrests of those people, which is exciting. And we're also talking from a galactic standpoint, an article that just came out today, that earlier this year, the United States Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force deployed assets to Peru. Peru. Well, here it is, just weeks before last week, when Peruvian tribes, indigenous tribes in the Amazon are reporting, remember the movie Predator? Reporting alien beings manifesting themselves and terrorizing them. And it's even reported, and it's in the article today, it's U.S. Air Force and Special Operations Army troops who are on the ground in Peru. So they know, the Galactics know, and God knows what's coming, and that nothing can stop what's coming, as we like to coin that. So if you're part of the youth, you are literally incarnated here, and you know why you're here, to tap into the vibration of love and ascension, and to get out there and to share this information. And really, if there's a responsibility any of our youth have, this goes the same for anybody watching, it's to find out what your soul's purpose is, right? On the side of the benevolent, and tap into it and unleash it. And whenever you see wrong being done, you've got to right that wrong, because everything is recorded. It's no longer like we were I don't know if anybody cheated on a math test. I remember there was one time I did live on long division, right? And I couldn't memorize long. How funny is it? I went off to do honors economics. Crazy. But yeah, I did that, and I can't remember my grade 5, Mr. Quinlan or something, grade 5 teacher. I apologize. Yes, I did. You wouldn't know, right? No, we know. Everything's captured, and it's so exciting. And it's a deep honor to be on with all of you. And look at this. Look at the awakening, right? You take a combat veteran, 3 tours, AJ. You take a man who's had multiple combat tours in Derek Johnson, and coming together and realizing that there's something greater than anything that we had signed up to serve, to stop evil, right, in the 3D, and awaken to the fact that we are multidimensional, infinite beings of light and love beneath the t-shirt I'm wearing, or the turquoise stone, Amazon Peru, Machu Picchu stone I'm wearing, and that we're all the same. We're all one, living this unique expression of our life, right, on this planet, and doing this together and sharing. And all of you watching are part of the White Hat Army, if you will, and awakening it up and having that 100 monkey effect in the mind, in the vibration you're sending forward. So it's freaking awesome. Just awesome. So thank you all for what you're doing. Hey, be vigilant. Yeah, go ahead.
What you said real quick, though, before we get too far away from it, you were talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
What have I been sharing? The aircraft. They're running under the call signs of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And Galactic. Everything that you ties into Galactic. It's Order 66. Has been one of the call signs, been heavy. And then also just the other day, it was Order 01. So, I mean,
there you go. Star Wars. Right to Star Wars. Yep. Absolutely. And we've all got the ships. Everybody's seen the ships. I mean, Michelle's channeling, and people are visually seeing this everywhere around the world. The ships flying over their homes. Submarines that are floating in the air upside down over Houston, Texas. Submarines. And people are like, oh, right. let's remember, it was only a year ago, Castro's little bastard child here in Canada is saying, we're sending F-16s and F-23s to shoot down those UFOs. And people are like, oh, right? You understand what I was just saying here, right? An F-16, 40 years old, is going to shoot down an interdimensional plasma ion engine that can go light years and outrun a 500-mile-an-hour Sidewinder missile.
Yeah.
Come on.
What's really interesting about all that is that, like, there's so much stuff in the press, doesn't matter whether it's UK or Canada or the United States, about releasing of information about UFOs, or they're priming people's minds to to be ready for something, like they're in charge of it all, like at the reveal, like these human little puppets are like in charge of how things get revealed, when if you've done your homework and your research, I clearly got to believe in it, but the actual ETs, the galactics, are the ones that will decide when this happens. Not little Rishi Sunak, the Roland Rat. Hey guys, look at this spaceship, surprise, it's all been a lie. It's yeah. And obviously on that, Michelle, you were talking about the galactic side of stuff. Obviously you have a lot of like contact with all the channeling you do, like, over the years around these kind of realms. Obviously Brad touched on about it then. Many people are having like a lot of experiences, including myself, especially more recently is that, and I kind of live in a hotbed for it, really, in Wiltshire in England, and it's very, very busy. What is there for people to expect? Obviously we've touched on the whole Space Force thing, like the makeup of it and stuff like that, but from a galactic sense, the way people are feeling in themselves, their bodies, people are having these shifts, they don't know what they mean. I know myself and Brad especially, and I know you do, Michelle, do a lot of work around that kind of thing to help people, like, raise them up to understand what they're shifting into and kind of embodying that. But from a galactic sense, like, what should people expect?
So the way that they always explain everything to me is that people like us on here, they call us the warriors of light, the beacons of light. And so the people like us that are at the front, we are vibrating probably slightly higher than the masses. And so the way that they teach me is that when we're all sitting here thinking, what is our purpose? Yes, we have our day-to-day purpose of doing videos or being a doctor or being a military guy or whatever. But really, the sole purpose of all of us is that we are beacons of energy. You were mentioning about the heart math before. We send out an energy signature wherever we go. And so the way that the galactics teach me is that we are like the, how do you explain it? Like the filament that joins heaven and earth together. So when we stand here on earth, we're joining the energy of the universal energy and the earth energy together. We're like the filament that joins it. And then as we encompass that energy, we vibrate it out, and it kind of touches the others. It goes into their space and it helps them to awaken. So just by being us, just by being pure, just by doing our spiritual work, we're helping to awaken all the others. Rather than, people don't hear the words that we say. They don't hear it, but they do know how they feel when they're around us. And the reason they feel like that is because our energy is touching them, and they don't understand that. They don't realize that's what's happening. So often it's not about saying repeatedly over and over and over certain things. It's about being in your center, being calm, being still, being peaceful, and being the best version of who you can be in a vibrational sense, in a spiritual sense. And then your essence goes out and it helps the others. And if we all do that, like now we're all sitting together, we're all merging together in a spiritual essence way. We're all becoming a bubble of light. And if all four of us are reaching people in their lounges right now, our bubble is helping them to awaken. It's not what we're saying. It's the fact that we're all sitting here as peaceful beings. We're all happy in who we are and what we're doing and what our task is. We know what we're here for, and that will resonate out to the others. It doesn't matter what we say. So when you ask me, what did the galactics teach me? It's all about energy. It's all about vibration. It's all about sonics and sound. That's how they explain it to me, sonics and sound. And so when you were speaking about the heart math, that's just another version of how they explain it to me. So I hope that helps.
That's beautiful. Blondie says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And AJ, to that effect, right, we have the sound of uniform love or sound of unlimited love, our soul, right? Harmonics, vibration. You look at Sanskrit, all universe, right? Om. Om is the sound of creation. It's written in Sanskrit. It goes back to Bhagavad Gita 25,000 years ago. It goes back billions of years of the hidden history. People are going to learn very soon parts of it and I'll continue to learn. So that's wonderful to hear the galactics said that, that vibration that we put together can literally uplift people. And that's the song of the universe. Every planet resonates with its own signature, like our heart and our brainwaves. It's so cool. Anyway, this is one of the most inspirational discussions I've had in my life. I'm so honored to be here. Go ahead, AJ. Sonny.
I was just gonna say, it's probably a lot of people here going, right, now we know Space Force is coming in. Yeah. We can see there's so many UFO sightings happening all over the world. We kind of got an idea there is stuff out there. My gaze is now on this. Like, wow, I'm like really excited. And there's people like that can be listening to that, feeling that right now. What would you suggest, Michelle, for people in terms of like further research on Space Force and even their own personal galactic connection, what that could be? Because for me, it's like nothing more exciting than knowing you're bigger than this like vessel that you're in right now. And then what does that look like? Because it takes your universe from this office I'm in to like infinity. Do you know what I mean? It's just an ever expanding, which makes it so much more exciting. So you can see by why they try to make it all sci-fi and why they put it in the movies to say it's all sci-fi and bullshit, to keep people in this little bubble all the time, living their life like that, thinking this is all it is. But no, there's gonna be lots of people like seeing this now going, I knew it. And there's a lot of people like seeing loads of my stuff at the moment, loads of Brad's, loads of Derek's and yourselves, and they're just getting these inner knowings. We know there's an energetic shift happening, but people having these like knowings that there's something more. Like, where would you suggest people kind of start paying their attention or putting their gaze towards, away from all the distractions?
Well, obviously they can watch all of us on our channels to get updates. But I think that if you go back to my roots and Brad's roots as spiritual teachers and coaches and things, what I would normally say to somebody who's just waking up in any sense, whether it's a spiritual sense or to what's going on the news or, in the sky, I would say, try and do some moments of contemplation, just where you quieten your mind, you're just still, you go to the sea, or you just sit in the woods, or you just close out the white noise. And then as you're thinking about all the things that we've been saying, how does it make you feel inside? What is it right? What does it do inside of you? Does it feel correct? And then that's how you start to harness this thing called discernment. Because when you have that thought, when you're out in a silent place and it resonates with you, it feels correct, that's once you've felt it once, then you can use that as a gauge in the future when you're switching on YouTube or the news and all this information's coming at you and you don't quite know which way to turn. You do the same thing. You go to a quiet space, you think about what you've just heard, and you say to yourself, does this feel right for me? This is your gauge, your intuition, your internal barometer. And if it feels right for you, then that's the route you should go along. And if it doesn't feel right, that's fine, because in the future it might change. But right now you just follow whatever your internal barometer is leading you to do. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe Derek. You don't have to believe AJ. You don't have to believe Brad. What you have to believe in is how it makes you feel inside. That's where you get the truth. And once you start understanding that, what you're doing is you're connecting to this eternal source that some people want to call God or universal energy or consciousness or whatever it is. It's not a religion. It's not even spirituality as such. You don't even have to have a name if you don't want to. It's a feeling. And once you learn how to connect to that feeling, then you'll easily be able to navigate what's ahead of you and what you're hearing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm seeing it for so many people, like so many, like people in my family and friends are suddenly having this almost like aha moment, and then it's then joining lots of dots together for them, and everybody in there is going to have that experience in their own way, where it's like a little grenade goes off in the head, and it's just like, whoa, I'm suddenly alive. Right, that makes sense. Now this makes sense. So like a lot of people now, so say post 2022, you know, who were kind of bought into the narrative for a couple of years, but then now most of them are questioning the stuff they're putting in our food, the stuff they're putting in the water. They're seeing things being sprayed in the sky, going, what is all that? You know, and it's like people are looking up more as a result. And all those other they're seeing the government week after week after week are just spewing out crap, you know, for fun. And then they're like, right, they are not our mates. And you know, so all those things are happening for people on a big scale. I'm seeing that like quite big, and I'm getting a lot of people messaging me saying, bro, really sorry the way I acted in 2020 to, you know, when you were just trying to show us and help us, you know. And I'm not after any apologies, and none of us are. It's not about that. It's about this bigger picture and taking our family and friends, you know, to much higher levels of consciousness, abilities, and you know, that just that whole big massive love frequency, basically. Derek, obviously you're in the thick of it, like day in, day out, putting all the content out there. And you've got obviously your own circle of like friends and stuff like that. And obviously the way things are going with the military on a big operational scale, there's stuff happening in the background everywhere. Just, it's just not publicized at all. And one of the first things that people say is like, where's the proof? I want to see this. I want to see people operating in tunnels and saving the children and et cetera, but we know that's not going to happen because, you know, like, why would anybody just say, oh yeah, this is our military plan, here you go, guys, all you people on social media, just share it around and like just have fun. You know, look at the people who landed on D-Day. They didn't even know they were going to war. They were given live ammunition, put on loads of boats and that, hundreds of thousands of troops, and actually sent into action without even knowing it. You know, there was only a selected few people that knew. So why does anybody think that like they're going to just show everybody all these military operations in action? Is that kind of like your response to a lot of the things that you get sent your way?
Yeah, and the other thing is just, you know, you would have certain people, as we both know, in the military that probably wouldn't want to be a part of that, right? If it, you know, it's like when you actually get put to the test, like sometimes it's better just throw someone in the ring, throw someone in the fire sometimes. I know some people won't understand that terminology, won't understand that mindset, but, you know, a lot of people are great right here, as we know. They will even, I don't get as much hate mail as I used to, but the ones I do get, oh, they're great right here. But if they were on the street, would they do that? More than likely not. You know, and guys, we know that more than anybody because we have this little word called testosterone. But it depends, you know. If I'm in a event, wherever I am, and I see you walk in with those tattooed muscles over there, I'm like, I don't know if I could take that, dude. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, but it depends on the scenario, right? You get a lot of barking going on. But if you were to just reveal this to everybody, especially everybody, the military plan, then you would have so many people in the streets. You'd have people, you'd have pandemonium, chaos. You'd have the Barney Fives. I mean, you'd have every entity come out, and it would look like pandemonium and chaos. If a certain just group found out of it, depended on what group it was. But, you know, President Trump did say it best at the very beginning. He specifically said that, you know, never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military, because if you find out, guess who else finds out? We're talking about the enemy. Now, there's ways that we know that the enemy's not looking at maybe certain things, or sometimes the enemy may think what they've thought in the past because of this right here. We've always had laws and orders on paper that read very well, but what are they doing in the background? Are they being applied? Are they being enforced? No, they haven't been through the years, because if they had been, we probably wouldn't be in this situation, because the military of the United States of America was supposed to remove people who went against the Constitution all these years. And then what happened? As Brad alluded to earlier, the stealing of the Republic in 1871. Well, that didn't happen just like that. It wasn't like 1871 just became instantaneous a takeover. It happened gradually. And as Michelle said earlier, this is a reverse psychology operation going on. It's not a psychological operation. It's a counter psyop, right? So we're having to go back all these years. So many people, wouldn't know what to do with this information, but they have shown it to people. I mean, President Trump, when he would sign these executive orders, he held it up. It's all public information. Everything I've shown, I mean, it is amazing how I am here in one way. I know that God put me here for a purpose and a plan. I never doubt his purpose for me. But when you really boil it down, I mean, all I've taken are the current laws and orders paired with the ones from the past that show an operation. And it's all aftermath work that I'm showing. It's all been established. It's all been written. It's all been bipartisan passed. And I'm showing the aftermath of it. So to be like people getting upset at, someone reading like a narrator of a book, not the author of the book, but the one just reading the book. So when you boil it down to that, people wouldn't know what to do with this kind of information all dumped at once. That's why, as you just said a while ago, once again, it's a reverse psychology. You have to just kind of Hansel and Gretel it in a different way, even though I showed all of it at once, is what I became known for last August. We're 10 days away from a year from the viral video. But still, what I'm seeing with a lot of people are still just, it's kind of like, if anybody's ever been under anesthesia, you're coming out of a surgery, you're coming out of like something, you kind of just groggy, and kind of like you get bits and pieces here and there, and then you're like, you nibble on it a little bit, and you're like, I don't know, maybe. I don't get so much of the outright hate from the standpoint of, oh, this isn't happening, because I got that last September. I got a few of those, but as things have shown, but it's really drawn down, especially since Biden did that order in July. I think that was the turning of the tables, because why would a president who is verbally against somebody, he has verbally attacked Donald Trump the whole time, and then all of a sudden, why would he give the Secretary of Defense the orders of Donald John Trump? That would be like the ultimate, like if this was a normal situation, that would be that testosterone thing where you just completely take someone's manhood away from them. Like, hey, you're not going to be the commander in chief. You're not going to make these orders. You're making this guy having to give his trophy over to the other commander in chief, basically, and saying, hey, Secretary of Defense, because as we know in the U.S., the Secretary of Defense is directly under the commander in chief. So why would Biden tell the Secretary of Defense to listen to Donald Trump's order? So that right there that'll nip it in the bud as far as what I've received. And this will start transitioning us to another level, because we are going to move into that as we approach 2024, and what the normal news is putting out for 2024, that will guide us there. But, as far as that goes, I mean, no, they were never going to tell this to everybody. They showed it to you in a different way, that if you know how government works, or how we've traditionally worked in the U.S., here's those laws and orders. All right. And then the missions, though, like you and I know, they did put that out there, kind of. I mean, it was now you would have to know, the average person would have to know the Army Times.com, militarytimes.com, a lot of the stuff that we get on the military side they're independent sources, and they're independent media outlets. You'd have to know those. But the Washington Post put it out there. Different people have put it out that the Army spent $500 million training our soldiers for our next wars will be in mega cities, but not inside them, but underneath them. They put that out there in 2018. They put out in 2019 that DARPA had requested immediate access from all universities to take over their tunnels. All right. And that should have right there flagged anybody going, wait, tunnels under universities, what for? That entity in itself. But so many people would, if they didn't know about these, these topics, subterranean warfare and things of that nature, they wouldn't have known that. But, let's say that half of the U.S., right? We know the U.S. is real. Our people, or the masses per se, are struggling a lot more with information because of the psychological operation that's been duped on them for years. Let's just say that half could come to the light instantly by telling them that there's child trafficking been going on. They've been happening in all these tunnels in the U.S. Let's just say that people could grasp that quick. I mean, most people would still want to run out and try to find these tunnels and get, you'd have people flock in places. And, I know I took a little slack when I first said this, but it's all outlined. The 2017 National Security Strategy by President Trump and the 2018 Guidance Circular, which is up under one of the continuity directives, both of those talk about the pandemic word for word as if they were both written after 2020. So that is where you start to teach people special operations from the standpoint of, okay, look, there's two different parts to look at here. All right. Here's what's going on here on the ground, and here's what's going on here by legislation. All right. But when you look at those, the military, the Second War Powers Act. So they had the First and Second War Powers Act in 1941. The Second War Powers Act is talking about land and naval use. Right. They're still intact and they're still used because they incorporated that in the 50 U.S. Code, which is the whole war and national defense. National defense. There's that domestic again that ties into the War Powers Resolution Act. It ties into national defense, the national deployment of National Guard and reserve components. All right. So you have two entities going on. And it's like that's what we're trying to wake people up to, is that the military is doing this over here, but they fully expect the people on the ground to want to take what President Trump says. Hey, we're going to give the power back to the people. Well, we can't give it back to the people until they know what's going on, which is what Michelle was talking about earlier by transferring this over. It's not going to be it's not going to be control like people think of, but you gotta believe in somebody's got the best interest for you, because we got to take care of the planet. We got to take care of the world. So when you look at COVID, the continuity directives, and especially that national security strategy and the 2018 one, when you read those, they read word for word about what a pandemic will look like and a biological threat will look like. And it reads word for word for what people saw. All right. The military planned COVID. They planned this time period to make people sit at home where they could move about the country easier and more, like without anybody doing anything. Now, this is where what people like to call if you want to, whatever you want to call them, the dark hats, the black hats, the deep state, but President Trump calls them the swamp. This is where the swamp retaliated, because at the end of the day, pharmaceutical companies, they're private entities from the standpoint of like if you're a chemist out there and you got funding and all these different things, you could have a pharmaceutical company, right? And you'd have to get all these different quote unquote licenses, this, that, and other. But they're private from the standpoint of they still can make decisions on their own because they have a CEO, they have a board of directors, and they have people who work for them. And then they do what? They distribute to hospitals, which have also CEOs, and they also have board of directors. And then those delegate down to what? Their doctors and their nurses, right? So they retaliated. They're the ones who retaliated. They're the ones who said, hey, we'll pay you this amount of money for each death that you have due to this vaccine, right? So when you look at what happened, there's separate things, right? So you have this operation going on, then you have the deep state retaliating to the laws and orders put in place, because those laws and orders were put in place for those guys to abide by. That's right. So it all ties in. It's probably for another show. I'll probably open a big can of worms here, but still, it shows though that there's two separate things going on, and what people are going to adhere to what's going to make better for humanity. Because President Trump says it best, this is all about him for the normals out there, especially. It's not all about him from the standpoint, but it is in a different way. When he says, you know, all of humanity he said all people will be happy with what we do, right? And he even says even the haters and trolls don't realize what we're doing is going to make their lives greater, right? So this was all done as a massive whole, right? And then it's like, as you know, in the military, you know, sometimes people don't understand that concept of saving $1 million and you might lose 10,000 versus losing $1 million and saving 10,000. So many people don't understand. We all have an individual responsibility. And that's what the national security strategy talks about, is our individual responsibilities as humans to take care of each other and also to advance humanity into a greater light, into a greater, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, but I know I opened a big can there, but we can probably follow that up on the next one.
100%. We can call it like can number 2 of 3,000.
Right.
Okay. I think that's what we're on about now, isn't it? Amazing stuff, man. And I think everybody's like contributed fantastically to everything that Michelle's brought to the table, elaborated on things so well from so many different angles. You know, and that's what I love about doing roundtables like this. And I'm sure everybody at home appreciates it just as much, especially as we've got people from different nations on the show, you know, bringing different information, different set of values, different set of skills, different set of experiences. And there's people like everyone watching this will resonate with several parts of this, if not most, I think. And just before we go, just quickly going around, I've just got a quick question for Brad. Obviously when this all kicks in, and you know, you've had some fantastic experiences and we've had some good conversations about mine this week, but what's the first thing you're going to do when you get your spaceship back?
I'm flying hardcore, you know, absolutely. I'm taking it for a massive spin, and I don't plan to be back anytime soon. Absolutely. 100%. And there's, you know, what's great? We can chuckle, but we know we're not joking.
Yeah,
right? AJ's asking me a legitimate question. It's kind of like saying, what's going to happen when you win the lottery and you get the keys to that car? You already know. And I absolutely know that. You know, I'm going to take it for a spin in this incarnation. Going to take it for a spin, you know, because I'm sure, as the Venus twins have said, I'm up there on the Enterprise somewhere hanging out with them every time I go to sleep, right? And,
yeah, 100%, man.
We need to ask Michelle about XRP Ledger before we wrap up here, because we know people are like, great, quantum. And Michelle, is there anything about the quantum on the finance side, people that may give them a little bit of ease here, or the message you feel you could bring forth of recent with BRICS coming around the corner?
So in terms of the quantum financial, I haven't done much work on that in terms of breaking it down into currencies like XRP and things and that sort of thing. But they do confirm constantly to me when I talk about it in the broadest sense that there is going to be a digital currency, and that initially it probably will be delivered through the CBDCs. But that's only because, again, the people on the ground will be able to manage that better because they'll be used to using their banks. That you know they understand how banks work, and it'll be an easier transition. But essentially, after that, the banks will go, and your digital money again will be, you know, working in a decentralized way. In terms of whether it's going to be XRP or Dogecoin or this new one that Amazon's bringing out, I think it will be a bit of everything. And it will have to be registered again through the quantum.gov. And if it's not registered through the quantum.gov and it's not backed by something legitimate like gold or silver or diamonds or an asset of some sort, I just think it won't get its registration.
Yeah, it sounds fair. I mean, I was talking about this the other week in terms of the CDBC, and I very much think that everyone's got that out there now in terms of priming the mind in terms of like the CDBC is bad, it's controlled, it's a central bank digital currency. That, you know, like even NatWest, who's my bank, are saying that if you want to withdraw over £2,000 now, you have to like answer all these questions and everything, which just shows they've got no money. So people are going, right, well, this is them showing you that they're going to control everything for a central bank digital currency. But what that does to the collective consciousness is it raises it even higher in terms of an awakening against the banks, against the governments. But from a tactical point of view, let's say you've got good guys, bad guys, you let the bad guys build their fort, run it, and then you go in there and smash them, remove them from their fort and use their infrastructure. And then people are already used to that fort being there. And that's literally what we're going to see. And then at the same time, it's like a double-edged approach where the masses awaken even further against all the tyranny and control, at the same time being introduced to something that's gold-backed, that's silver-backed, that's, you know, has those actual proper backed assets, whereas obviously the dollar's backed by nothing, the pound the same. Most people have worked out now they were just printing money for fun, for pay people furlough and all the rest of it, which has caused the inflation. So again, this is one of the things that's waking most people up to anything to do with the financial side, whether it's high, like, you know, gas bills or the introduction of these CBDCs. So you can see, again, it's just a multifaceted awakening approach, PSYOP, you know, reverse psychology PSYOP, to awaken the masses, but to roll in the new. Likewise, BRICS, all the countries, including states in America, signing up to BRICS, which is in essence the QFS. And like from my research, that the main currencies are going to be XRP backed by gold and Stellar XLM backed by silver, among a few others in there as well. But, you know, backed by things like copper, etc., and palladium, I think it is.
Palladium.
So yeah. So yeah, you know, absolutely. But again, it's just goes to show you how much of a huge military operation this all is, that we've all lived through and that we've all been a part of in literally the greatest time to be alive in human history. And, you know, a lot of us talk about our grandparents and stuff like that, and the fact, you know, they fought in World War II, and, you know, like many know, my granddad, you know, landed on Juno Beach D-Day and everything that was all about. You know, we're experiencing the same, like almost living in their shoes. It's just a unrestricted warfare, you know, where it's psychological, spiritual, economic, all of that, you know, from every angle you can imagine. And everyone's been a victim and a soldier in this war. And where we're going now, it's like, I think people just need to decide what side they want to sit on. Do you want to be a victim, or do you want to be a super soldier? Because that's where we're all going. And you don't need to have military experience to want that on the other side.
You see, that's how awakening works. This is the point of all this confusion. Awakening how it works is that you get bombarded with something that you don't like the sound of, or too much information, and you have like either a nervous breakdown, or you have to say, hang on, I've just got to go away and think about this. What do people say when they're overwhelmed? I have to just go away and think about this. And the awakening happens when they go inside and all that information is swimming around, and they have to decide from their internal compass what feels right for me. And then they awaken. So all this information, things that we're seeing on the ground, one person saying transgender is good, one person saying transgender isn't, one person saying Ron DeSantis is good, one person saying Ron DeSantis isn't. In the end, everyone gets so overwhelmed that they have to go away, they have to go inside, and that's how the awakening happens. Awakening happens from inside. It doesn't happen from necessarily what we're saying. It's about the people having to go away and assess how they feel about it.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And just to wrap it up, if just go around the board and starting with Brad, if you wouldn't mind sharing where people can find you to find out more about the Sovereign Soul Show and what you do on there and all the information you're putting out, and then Derek and Michelle.
Right. Thank you very much. And it's the Sovereign Soul Show. You can see behind me here the logo. It stands for love, levity, and liberty. And the mascot, our mascot, is the blinged Buddha, because he fires red pills from his 9mm. And he's got that Punisher tattoo over his left breast to save the children. So you can go to, and by the way, the Buddha stands for awakened one. So again, not about the religion, is waking up. That's the whole point. Like Michelle was saying, the awakening, right? We are all becoming our own Buddha. Buddha stands for the awakened one. Siddhartha Gautama that is an example of a human who becomes enlightened. So that's why go to shopthebuddha.com. Got everything on shopthebuddha.com or on a Rumble channel. It's the only place you can find me now after being blasted everywhere, like everybody's well aware, taken off YouTube's, Instagram, Spotify. I can't stand a poem to save the children. So here we are, shopbuddha.com, Rumble. Honored to be with all of you. Remember what Michelle said. We have a galactic star in our chakras, and we have an earth star at the very bottom of the human chakra. And as the galactics channeled to Michelle, and she just shared here 20 minutes ago, it's about vibration and harmonics. And we as a human are a strand of the cosmos. So we're already divinely built with a galactic star above us in our chakra system and our earth star at the very base to go exactly that way. So it's quite beautiful. So yeah, you can find all our shows at shopthebuddha.com and Rumble and a few other great things. And thanks to AJ for one of his great folks, Sean, for building that website in 3 days last week. So thank
Brilliant.
you, Sean.
He's a top man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Derek, obviously you're, when you're not on the golf course with Donald Trump, where can people find you?
Oh man. Well, I can be found on thedocuments.info, rattletrap1776.com, DerekJohnsonCountry.com. Facebook is 1776 Nation Original. True Socials at Derek Johnson. And my Telegram and Twitter and Rumble are all the same. They're Rattletrap1776, all one word, no spaces, no underscores, no anything. So, yeah.
Love it, man. I love your work, and I can see how many people love your work on a daily basis. So, please keep bringing it, man. There's
don't forget about his Spotify. He's still a country singer before all of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
he's got a song. He's got a song or two.
And Billboard. It's incredible, right? Yeah.
Beautiful,
so
man.
I'm putting that out there for everybody. If you go enjoy country music, go to Derek. He's got 2 #1 Billboard hits, which is only ever done once before, on top of all this, right? So, just sharing that with people. There's certain things we've done before we've come into this fight and be a warrior, as Michelle so eloquently put it.
Beautiful.
So congrats to all of the audience. All right.
And Michelle?
AJ's show. Sorry, I'll back away. Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for Derek to sing to me. He hasn't done it yet. He did promise some time ago, but I'm still waiting, Derek, for you to sing to me personally at some point.
Well,
we should sing our Raised Right. We're both writing a song, so we should. You know what? We could test Raised Right on you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Right beer right now for Michelle.
I don't know. Look, she might want a love song. You never know. It might need to be a little bit more like just not beer oriented, guy oriented. And
yeah, beautiful.
So if you want to find me, the best way, because I do get taken down a lot. So the best thing is to go to Telegram, which is where I post everything. That will lead you to my website, which is goldenheavenonearth.net. And it will also lead you to my locals.com channel, where I put all my political stuff now, because, I can't put it anywhere else. It just gets taken down. And you can also find me at Rumble, but usually my political stuff goes to Telegram and locals.com.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And myself, if anyone wants to find anything about my stuff, just MrAJRoberts.com. I'm pretty much shadow banned and taken down from everywhere else. So if you don't find me there, I'll just be meditating naked in my garden. So just come round. And we'll have a chat. No, I was joking. But no, thank you guys. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'm sure there's everyone's taken so much away from this, and even just notched up that level of excitement a little bit more to like bigger and better things that are coming. There's some actual context behind that. It's not just some words or shares on a story or something like that. It's actually 4 people, ex-military, spiritual channelers, bringing it all together and actually showing people a framework of like how things are going to look moving forward. And it'll answer probably a lot of questions about what people are seeing at the moment, and I've seen previously over the last 2 years, and probably, well, it will connect a lot more dots of people, which is the whole point. But I want to say a big thank you to you 3 and everyone else who tuned in, and I'm sure you'll see many of us very soon on our different shows, very likely back together. But until then, take care of yourself, keep your eyes on the prize, and we'll see you all very, very soon.
God bless everybody.
Bye, everyone.